Well, we call them Grievers. No one's ever seen one and lived to tell about it, but they're out there.
100-foot-tall moving walls, giant creatures, desolate cities. You can bet CGI played a huge part in bringing the Maze Runner films to life. While there wasn't actually a ton of green screen used in the film, CGI was key to bring everything from the scenery to the Grievers to life. Method Studios had 170 people working for 10 months, creating 530 CGI shots just for the first film. Let's break it down and see how it all worked.
What is this place? Let me show you.
The maze in the Maze Runner is obviously a key element, and the team did not disappoint. As we can see here, the actors are actually in a pretty large open green space with a few blue screens that were around them, marking spots where the walls of the maze are then CGI'd in.
Never go beyond those walls.
We can see in this shot that the walls moving in were in part real, but the structures they filmed were much smaller in scale and needed CGI to complete the look.
Why won't you tell me what's out there?
I'm trying to protect you, man.
For your own good. You guys can't just keep me here.
Can't let you leave.
Check out how much depth is actually created by After Effects. These long, daunting hallways look so real. As for the overall maze itself, we can see there are several layers that contribute to the construction of this realistic-looking landscape. The structure itself, the sandy dunes, and a bit of light and smoke to really finish off the scene.
The maze is a dangerous place.
It's one thing to CGI a giant maze structure, but it's a whole other challenge to bring a terrifying, giant, moving maze to the screen realistically.
How's that even possible?
It's hard to believe this sequence was shot in just 2 days. We can see that the actors were really in a giant car park with a 180-foot blue screen that was 40 feet high. So what were the actors seeing otherwise?
What the hell is this place? Calm blades.
Well, they had these few blue poles in the lot marking where certain walls would be. Much less intimidating than what we see in the movie. Jumping ahead to the third film, we see some incredibly complex and impressive CGI work, especially near the end when Teresa and Thomas are tragically separated.
I'm sorry. I tried.
I know.
As we can see, this terrifying roof scene did still make use of some actual fire, but the level wasn't nearly as intense as what we see in the final cut. This rooftop creation looks incredible, and with all the CGI edits, well, it's one of the most terrifying scenes by far. Thankfully, there was far less fire surrounding the actors while they were actually shooting. And then, of course, the helicopter. For part of the shot, the helicopter is fully CGI created. But when they get closer to Teresa and Thomas, we can see that the helicopter was a whole contraption built onto the set. The doorway to the helicopter is fully realized, but the remainder surrounding it is just a green screen, enabling the video effects magic to take over. Oh yeah, this building falling down? Total CGI. While the whole scene looks very dramatic with all the effects, we have to admit that even this scene without CGI is wild. Then we have the most intense point, Teresa's fall. While she did have a slight fall, we can see that the actor is hooked up to wires to help ease her down, and the drop isn't nearly as huge as the one we see in the final cut. There was no shortage of dramatic and exciting scenes in the third film, The Death Cure.
Transport 019, we got trouble on the rail line.
This scene shows so much action, but as we can see, it was all actually pretty still. The scenery is all done with CGI, but how did they make it look like they were speeding around? Well, in that case, this giant fan does the trick. The way they had it all set up definitely made these tricky-looking stunts much easier and safer. Checking out what it looks like without all the effects, we have loads of people actually physically manipulating the car on set, which still looks pretty amazing. We have to give it to them because the final product is incredible, especially considering that they had a relatively small budget of $62 million to create all that they did.
That, my friend, was a griever.
We can't talk about Maze Runner without checking out how they brought the insane creations that are the Grievers to life. These guardians of the maze, completely created by CGI. The process to create them was super complex. We can see in these sketches how much detail was put into creating the perfect, terrifying creature.
You saw a Griever?
Yeah, I saw one. You didn't just see it.
So how did they do the scenes with the actors battling them so well? Cue the stuntmen in blue. While they aren't nearly as terrifying as the creatures themselves, they put up a pretty good fight with the actors. Check out these long blue poles they used in the real battle on set.
When we stay close, we stick together, we get through this, we get out now.
We can see they're holding large blue pads as well to help build out the shape of what we see in the final cut. Definitely not so scary to run from. As for this scene, the trick to making it look like the Griever was actually lifting the actor up was having two stunt people holding him up in this giant rig. Who knew stuntmen in blue morph suits could be so effective? Oh, and when the Griever catches fire? Yeah, that's completely done with VFX. Extremely good ones too. It might seem like a small detail, but the running ivy we see throughout the maze is incredibly complex. So much so that they actually created brand new software to do it. If we look closely, we can see how many variances there are between the thickness of vines and the leaves themselves, plus the fact that they turn towards light, just like real ivy.
They don't even try climbing to the top. The ivy doesn't go all the way to the top.
This edition played even more of a role than you'd think. They were actually responsible for differentiating the look between scenes that were filmed in the exact same location.
It's time now to begin Phase 2.
The second film in the franchise had plenty of CGI. All these giant, abandoned, and desolate buildings? Yeah, that's all computer generated. The creation of these was actually pretty complicated. To make it accurate, they first created full cities and then broke them down so they look like what we see in the movie. They used a special technology called particle-based weathering, which allowed the city to decay in the most realistic way possible. No wonder it looks so incredible.
What the hell happened to this place?
Doesn't look like anyone's been here in a long time.
Oh, and these giant sandy dunes? You can bet those are all created by the effects artists. The sand wasn't just added in loosely, though. The artists actually did simulations to see how sand really moved in the wind and then replicated the ripple patterns that would actually appear. Check out how natural these look. Then there are the sewers filled with evil cranks. All CGI. The motions of the cranks was motion captured by circus actors who were double jointed, and the result is super terrifying and creepy. CGI was used to add in all the strange, veiny, and vine-like looking details on their faces as well.
And welcome to the safe haven!
Let's talk about some of the scenery. It's pretty vast and really brings the worlds to life. In the films, there were hundreds of shots of the environment that were all CGI, including this one of a helicopter flying through the sandy dunes.
Welcome to the Glade.
The Glade itself in the first film was actually a real location, but not nearly as big as we see on screen. We can see in this shot there's a small part of the maze built. This facade is where a lot of the dialogue scenes were filmed up close.
We don't belong here. Hey, this place isn't our home.
The walls we see here are only 20 feet high, but the CGI used extends everything we see to appear much, much larger. Shadows had to be considered as well, and was simulated so they were all uniform and matching where the light was hitting walls.
I never thought I'd say it. I miss the Glade.
Oh yeah, and this elevator shot? Not so dramatic when we see that it was just a cage surrounded by green. It's honestly a bit surprising to see so many seemingly simple shots needing CGI to be done.
But our Glade was a real location. It was its own little world.
We can't believe how much work went into creating these movies, and so flawlessly as well. While we knew they likely didn't build 100-foot tall moving walls and destroyed cities, we never could have guessed how much CGI contributed to creating the environments. We have to say though, impressive as the Grievers are, we're also pretty big fans of the blue stuntmen running around with poles.